Happy Monday, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had a super weekend. And if you happen to be in a relationship and you got into a fight with your significant other, then you want to listen up, because we're going to dive into that quite a bit in today's show. We're talking about conflict and conflict resolution. Is it inevitable? How can you resolve an argument with as much grace and not having a hothead as possible? And we've got two experts in the building. We're here at Park Inn by Radisson, and we're going to dive into it. Conflict resolution and compatibility.
Right.
So my first guest is Ernest Romboy, and he's a father, a husband, an author of this book, Basics. Basics with, you know, the cool bay in it. Basics. Setting the right foundations to marry well. And he's an award-winning author as well. And then we've got Grace Kariuki, who's a family and marriage therapist. And I'm just, there's so many questions I've got here. And I'm sure there's so many people who are watching and are like, yeah, I'm writing notes so that I can tell
Right.
Mr. X or Miss X, right? Because they need to learn. Yeah, it's like, listen up. Right. So before we even get into the conflict bit, maybe we should start by trying to figure out compatibility in relationships and how you know this is the right person. So I'm curious to hear from you. What are some of the telltale signs that this isn't just a good fun thing, but it's a solid relationship with the right foundations? How do you? What are the telltale signs?
All right. I think one of the things that I really see as important to make a couple have a firm foundation for the future marriage is having similar fundamental values. There are things that you hold to be very important to you, and you would not compromise them no matter what. I'm talking about the things that you die for, the things that are so key to you that you feel like the rest of your life cannot be defined without those things. So I'll give an example. In my life, it's my Christian faith. That is something that is so key to me. I feel like you can't take that away from me. I mean, I'd be willing to die for that. And when couples come together, they must ask themselves, do they have fundamental values that they agree with? Because fundamental values are what they are. They're fundamental. You don't want to shift from them. They're not things that you change with time. They're not things that change with the age. And if couples come together and their fundamental values clash, they are going to be incompatible. They may love each other's, they may have the quote-unquote chemistry, so to speak, you know, they may finish each other's sentences, but ultimately, when the rubber meets the road, their fundamental values are going to help them clash, because it's going to cause them to clash, because it's going to affect how you raise children, it's going to affect how you use your money, it's going to affect how you do. The most basic things in life are actually governed by our fundamental values. So that's one thing that does really cause lack of compatibility, so to speak.
To add on what Ernest has said, maybe somebody is asking, what is a value? And a value is the principles and standards by which I live, by which I make choices. What is that guiding light that tells me I'm not going to be with Jane, I'm going to be with Mary? So those are belief systems that we have set over time. And where do we get these values? These values come from the way that we are raised, from our religious leanings, from our parental raising. You know, I usually make fun and I say, the way you are in a family, and they say, in our family we don't do such. And so I grew up hearing my mother saying, in our family we don't consult witch doctors. You know, so if you find somebody who is in that area, then that person is not going to be compatible with you, because they are not walking the same way that you are. One of the things that couples need to understand is that chemistry is not everything, because that's what we go for. What we need to find out is how much we are in agreement. And even when we don't agree, that we are agreeable with each other. Even when we are not feeling like I can accept what you are doing, that I can express to you acceptability. You see what? So if we are not in that space with each other, then it's just like Ernest said, we are going to clash more than couples who would be more compatible.
Most couples go by that chemistry. Oh, this feels good. He said I looked good today. Ooh, she likes my car. You know, is that why sometimes couples still go? Because what you're saying makes so much sense. I'm just wondering then, why do we override that kind of such a big conversation and
Well, I
go
think
with what?
I think one major contributing factor to that is Hollywood. Hollywood has sold this idea that Princess Fiona, Shrek, whoever, even as odd a couple as they may be, or Cinderella charming the the default couple, they come together and there's just a spark. So subtly we bind to that idea that when I feel things, then this is the right person. And so the problem with that is that it's not real. It's entertainment. But entertainment is powerful. It's very, very powerful. So it does fuel that idea, that that spark, that feeling. And the trouble with that is that, and I'll say, I mean, as a married person, you could actually feel that with someone else who you're not married to. You can meet someone for the very first time and think, whoa. And if you peg that as the foundation of your relationship, you could easily make excuses and say, I married the wrong person.
Yes.
Right.
So
because Hollywood tells you if there's no sparks, there's something.
Then I have fallen in love,
Yeah.
and now I'm out of love, and it's time for me to get out of here.
Yeah.
So the thing that we need to understand also, there is a place for this spark.
Oh yes,
within
definitely.
the relationship,
Okay.
because you see, every long-term relationship has seasons. And so
Yeah.
the season of dating, that's what causes you to get together with a person. That's what causes me to say, I'll go with John and not David.
Yeah.
Because I have that spark, I feel that connection, so I go with him. The first 4 weeks of dating, we are talking for 2-3 hours into the morning. But what are we talking about? I remember when I dated my husband, we were grown. We were both, over 35. And so our talks were not the talks that 20-somethings would be having, because we have already matured to a space where we are looking for. I usually say I evolved from the dark, tall, and handsome to other things, character things. We would need to explain to people that the spark has a space, and that is the dream season of the relationship. However, it needs to go deeper. It needs to go into, what do you like? What don't you like? Who are you like? I remember this guy that I met, and obviously as a counselor, I had learned the questions to ask. So I said, so tell me about where you went to school. And you know what he told me? He said, why do you want to know? And I knew right there that we are not going to be compatible, because even though there was chemistry, this guy is not willing to go deeper. He's not willing to be vulnerable. And vulnerability is the other issue that is very important in a relationship. That I can be honest with you and still feel safe.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Naked and not ashamed.
Right. Oh, vulnerability. First of all, Brene Brown, who I'm sure you must know of, she's is she a psychologist or a therapist? But she talks a lot about vulnerability and how it's at the core of how we lead, how we parent, what relationships we're in. That we could dive into that for as a whole other show. So at which point should you then start asking the questions? How soon should you is it like, hey, Ernest, nice to meet you. So what are your values? Because I don't want to waste time. And I don't want to, because the problem is once you start having those feelings and it's like, oh, it's exciting. They've called, she's called. Then you're like, what are values? You throw them out the window. You're like, this is great. The rest we'll figure out.
I
So
think
how
the feelings
soon?
are good because I mean they keep you excited in the relationship. First of all. But secondly, I look at the spark, the feelings. You like how she looks. You like how he looks. I look at that as an invite.
Okay.
It's like it's letting this person come into your space for you to ask the more serious questions. Okay. So it's okay when you feel that kind of attraction. All right. And I tell guys, don't start a relationship at that point. Take that moment to develop just a friendship with this person, to get to know, okay, so who is this person? What are they like? Get to hang out with them in groups. So what you're basically doing, you're allowing that attraction to just bring you closer to this person. And then you start seeing some real difficult things that you want to consider for the rest of your life. Okay, how's their character? How do they talk to the watchman? How do they talk to the to the guard? And so those are the things that are gonna matter. Because at the end of the day, the feelings can't raise children. The feelings can't keep a marriage. The feelings can't. They are not pivotal, so to speak. So the feelings are good. They invite you, develop a friendship with this person, and at times just in that period of friendship, you can tell, it's good, let's just remain as friends with this person. But if you like what you've seen, if there is more, then I think that pushes you to now ask them the important questions. Like, hey, let's go for coffee. Now you're excluding them from the circle of people, take them aside, let's go for coffee. Hey, you get to know them deeper, asking them the tougher questions.
So the both of you have talked about tougher questions.
Yeah.
Can we now have examples? Because we're all ready to write them down and figure out, like, question number one.
Yeah.
What are some of those questions?
Now, the question that I asked this guy, where did you go to school? That's a very simple question, but it will lead you to know the kind of background he had. And if for instance, if you ask me that question, then I will say, I went to Olongai Primary School, and this was my experience there, that I had this, I'll never forget this teacher. And so I begin to tell my life story to you. And if you are keen and you're listening, you're going to learn some things. I remember one thing, my husband, we are talking, and I realized in every conversation we had, the conversation of finances came up.
Yes.
And I as a 30-something woman, I'm saying I'm not looking for a man to take care of me. I've been taking care of myself since I was 17, so I'm not looking for a man to take care of me. But then he kept talking about money, and then finally I said to myself, this has to be important. So pay attention to what people repeat. Because if somebody repeats something, it means that something is important to them. And so I asked him, I have realized that you really do talk about money. And then I got the story. And so now I knew where he was coming from. And we went deeper in his values when it comes to money.
And you understand possibly where he's going.
Yes.
And inversely, if you were asking someone questions,
Yes.
About their background, and they kept talking about alcohol,
Yes.
parties, drinking,
Yes.
and you were like, I really don't want to be...
What we talk about reveals
right?
our hearts.
Yes.
Our mouths actually reveal what we strongly believe in. So I like money is one of those areas that you can really, prod questions about. Faith is one of those areas as well. And by faith, talking about what's your belief concerning the origin of life, what's your belief concerning the purpose of life, what's your belief concerning the destiny of life, all right? And those questions you can answer them on the macro level. Oh, yes, I believe there's a God, or I don't believe there's a God, okay? That's macro. But you must go to the micro level as well and say, okay, you believe there's a God, I believe there's a God. What's his name?
Yeah.
It matters. It really does matter. Why are we here on earth? Well, are we just here to make money, get rich, die
What is your
trying?
purpose? What do you
Why are
believe
we
is your
here?
purpose?
Are we here to live for others, or are we here to live for ourselves? What happens when we die? Those are important questions. Questions of money, questions of faith, questions of character. How they treat other people, how they, and perhaps the questions of character you may not necessarily ask them. You may have to see.
Observe.
Yeah,
Because no one's going to
that's
tell you,
the
I'm actually a
word.
terrible human being.
Yes.
They'll be like, no, I'm a nice guy. But then you watch how they treat the waiter, treat
Yes.
the
And everybody
guard.
puts the best foot forward in your dating. You want to be seen as this perfect person. Now, Sherry Graff, in her book, the book she's written called I Don't Get You, and it's a guide to healthy conversations. And she says there are 5 levels of conversations, and I think people can use these 5 levels to just get deeper in knowing someone. She says level 1 is basic information. Hi, my name is Ernest. Hi, my name is Sharon. Oh, I live in Nairobi. I live in Nairobi as well. This is just biodata. Anyone can get this kind of information from you. This information you feel in a medical form, right? Then level 2 is when you talk about your general personal experiences. So these are things you've gone through.
Yes.
But they are not necessarily emotionally heavy. So I would say, oh man, I lost some money last week. I was conned by this guy. Oh man, I'm really sorry. Or like, oh man, I really had this transformative experience when I went to this camp. So it's something that you can share with. You can even share it with a stranger. Then level 3 is when you really start to understand what this person really values. Level 3 is when you start talking about your dreams and aspirations.
Yeah.
What do you want to achieve in this life? What are you after? What are you pursuing? And at that point, the truths concerning this area start to come out. Okay, level 4 and 5 are areas which Sherry Graff even says, if you know you're not ready to commit to this person, don't go there, because if they do open up and you're not ready to commit, it may be dangerous because they may feel they've opened up too much to you.
Yeah.
Or you may feel like you are attached to them and perhaps you're not willing to commit. And it says level 4 is when you talk about your deepest fears.
Yeah.
What are you afraid of? You may say, oh, I'm afraid, I don't want to get married. I'm afraid why? My parents suffered a divorce. I don't want to get married. I'm afraid I've got too many skeletons in my closet. I'm afraid of that. And then level 5 is when you talk about your deepest hearts, okay? And if you realize level 4 and 5 has to do with what Grace said, vulnerability, all right? So deepest fears, deepest hearts, sorry. These are things that you've gone through that bring tears to your eyes when you start speaking about them. Being left, being abandoned, being abused, you know, being cheated on. And the way people speak about these things will help you understand what they truly value.
Yes.
All right. But as you venture, you must be careful because conversations bring people together.
Yeah.
Together, yeah.
So many times, I think even just by level 3, you can tell I don't want to go deep with this person.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly.
Oh my
And
goodness.
you know what is happening now, especially with our young generation, is that within the first month of meeting, we've already gone to level 5. Because we have already talked about the boyfriend who ditched me, the girlfriend who cheated on me, and I don't know this person.
Yes.
I am not sure he is
And now
safe.
you're
for
in a
me.
relationship with them.
Yeah, and so we enter
Exactly.
into courtship before we have done, because dating is supposed to be a time when I'm gathering data.
Information, yeah.
So that I can decide whether I go to the next level with this person. But what is happening is that by the time we are week 3, we have already had a sleepover.
Oh my goodness! So we've got to take a break, but
Yes.
I mean, you have no idea how excited I am. I feel like I'm in a classroom. I can't wait to share this with all my friends.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm sure if you're watching yours as well, like busy taking notes like I was. All right, we've got to take a break. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back, everybody. We're talking about love, relationships, compatibility, and we're also going to get into conflict and conflict resolution. I've got Ernest from Boya and Grace Kariuki here, and before the break, they were just blowing my mind with some of the questions that you should be asking during the dating phase. And you mentioned Cheryl Graff's book.
Yes.
And you know, you gave the 5 things that you 5 levels that you should
conversation, yes.
levels of conversation. And then Grace, you started saying that the problem is that we by week 3 we've covered all 5 things. We feel so connected, so attached, and we're like, let's just jump into this. So how should we? What's a safe way to spread it out? And also, why are we so open to sharing our deepest, darkest fears? And
I believe, first of all, because we haven't had time to process. We haven't processed our own experiences. And so I'm coming in and suddenly somebody who accepts me and somebody who I have chemistry with, and we begin to feel like this is a safe space for me to be vulnerable. The thing is, then when they walk away from us, then we are wounded because I invested too much into this. So step number 1, even before you get into knowing this person, you need to know yourself. You need to deal with the things that you bring. Know your baggage. Know what it is that you bring into the relationship as baggage. So deal with it first. Be the right person before you look for the right person. Because then when you deal with it, first of all, you have crystallized what your values are, first of all. And then when you know what your values are, then you are going to find or attract a person with the same. So you will be able to know whether this person is of value or not. Now, you asked about generally, let me put it this way, generally, you need to date for at least 3 months. At least 3 months before now you step into, and I'm saying that for the 20-somethings, you know, because they don't have the maturity to be able to discriminate when to not get into. So for 3 months, let's not be sexual. If you know, and I know we are in a different dispensation, but because once we become that vulnerable again with a person, it's harder for us to step back and look. At around 6 months, that's when a relationship begins to ask for this next level. which is now, are we committed? Are we moving forward into long term, or are we? Now, you can imagine if I move in with you at month number 1, I don't know everything about you. Now I have put myself into a space where I have to know you as a spouse, as a long term, because I have opened myself to you as a spouse. I normally say we set up a home before we have decided whether that is the right thing for us to do at this time in our life. Because when I move in with somebody, so you don't want to do that. During those first 6 months of the relationship, just get to know this person and at least get to level number 4. You know, before now you go into level number 5. You know, and the question is, and again, I'm sure, Ernest, maybe you would help me out here. I don't know whether the timelines would depend on the maturity of people, their value systems, and also what they are looking. What is their goal? For instance, I remember I was 20, and I said to myself, why am I dating? For what? Because I got burnt, and I thought to myself, okay, I'm trying to build a career, I'm trying to go to college. Why am I complicating myself with this lifetime things? There is a time for everything. And I decided at 20, I'm not dating. And I did that thing you said, you know, go out in groups, get to know yourself within a group.
It really is important because we pose this the question, we ask yourself, would you marry you?
Yes.
You know? Would you marry
That's
if
a
you?
good
If you
Whoa! Wait a second. Let's take a moment. I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
Would you marry you?
Would
Yes.
you? And you see, we judge other people by their actions, but we judge ourselves by our intentions. And that's wrong. We say, I meant, but they did. And at times we just need to really judge ourselves by our actions. I did do these things, and I don't think I'd be happy if someone else did them to me. And so I must stop. I must evaluate myself. I must, you know, it's okay to be single for a season, so that you develop the right mindset, so that you're ready, you're mature. Because we live in a generation where people, a young person is out of college. By the time they're 22, they've been in 8 relationships, and I mean, it's hard because, you know, you hear them starting to say certain things. They say, okay, all men are dogs, all women are. And I remember I met this lady who said, it's all men are dogs. I'm like, whoa, calm down. How old are you? She's like, I'm 23. I'm like, how many have you dated? I'm like, okay, I've dated like 6 of them. I'm like, 6 of them? Like, and from these 6 men, all men are dogs, all men are trash. I'm like, yeah. So the one from church, the one from the club, the one from the, all of them are the same. All of them are trying to use me. All of them are dogs. I'm like, okay, let's evaluate these 6 dogs. And I asked her a very tough question, and she got mad. I told her, in these 6 relationships, you're the common denominator. You know, it's painful. But I told her, wouldn't you just have the humility to take a step back and perhaps evaluate why you keep choosing the same kind of people?
Yes.
There is someone out there who will love you differently from these people, and that guy can't be a dog. He can't be trash. You know?
Oh my
so
goodness.
Take a step back, work on yourself, and then step out. And you had asked, why is it that we dive headlong into those kind of relationships? Every human being wants affirmation. Every human being wants acceptance. You want to be involved in a community despite your flaws. You know, you want people to say, hey, Sharon, the show may not have gone well, but you're still part of us. We're not rejecting you on account of that. You know, you want people to see the worst side of you and say it's okay. And every human being wants appreciation. You want to do something and you want people to recognize your worth for it. So we run to relationships hoping to get these 3 things. We want someone to affirm us. Someone tell us, ladies want to hear you're beautiful. Guys want to hear you did well. You know, they want to be respected. They want to have emotional connection. They want to be accepted. They want you to tell them, hey, you know, this is my past. I've messed up. I've had some really horrible things, but it's okay. I'll still be with you. And you want to be appreciated. You want to say, hey, you brought worth into my life. Since I was with you, I've been a better person. And at times, because of that deep need in our hearts, we run to relationships. But the truth is that we can actually get those things apart from an intimate relationship with someone of the opposite sex. All right? And it's important to be affirmed, be accepted, be appreciated as an individual before you check into a relationship, so that your esteem is set, so that you are doing okay fundamentally. Where you get that from matters. If you get that from a finite source, then those 3 things will tumble, because the source is finite. If you get that from an infinite source, you will not fumble even though the worst in life hits you. And so I get my source of affirmation, appreciation, and acceptance from my relationship with Christ. That can never be taken away from me. And I urge young people to get that from something infinite, something that can never be stripped away from you. You will stand even when the worst comes in your relationships.
Wow. So I think we should jump into the conflict side of things. So that's another big part of relationships and why they ultimately end. And we asked some of you guys actually to share with us how you handle conflict in your marriage, as well as what type of couple you are when it comes to conflict resolution. So take a look at what some of you had to say about this.
How I handle relationship, I think by talking, conflicts don't help. And it's a message to all young people who we have had stories of them using weapons and trying to actually get things by force and killing their partners. So I think by talking, because you're mature people, you should talk and talk things out, and then I think they can work when you talk.
Well, I think the first time I'll get mad a little, and then I'll take my time to think about it, and then I'll talk to the person.
Okay, when it comes to my case, mimi wanga naamua kunyamaza, because by the time maybe tumekosana, tumesumbuana na mrembo wangu, and it's like kila mtu amekasirika. For you to avoid maneno mingi, you just need to keep quiet. Kwa sababu ukiraise up uwe na umekasirika na mwingine pia amekasirika, you find that now the issue that was small imekuwa kubwa. So it's good for you to keep quiet and maybe walk away. Alafu wakati sasa roho umetulia chini, now it's when you mnaweza rudi pamoja na muongee.
All right, so that's what you guys had to say, and now I have to ask both of you, Grace and Ernest, how do you handle conflict in your relationship? Because the advice you've given us so far is so wise, and poised, and so graceful.
Yeah, we are human, so I think maybe I'll start by sharing a conflict that my wife and I had. So when we were newly married, we came from our honeymoon. And my father-in-law called us and told us that there's a guest who had come who couldn't come for the wedding, and he left us some money. So he asked us to go collect the money. So we drove over to his place, got the envelope, and found out, oh my goodness, it was 40,000 shillings. We're like, woohoo, good money, you know? And as we're going back home, I started telling my wife, good, fantastic. So what we can do, we can use part of the money to pay rent. And then after that, we can, buy a few things in the house. I want to stock up the fridge. So that's another topic for another day, but there are 4 views of money. I view money as security, all right? She views money as freedom, all right? Other people may view money as love or as power. So she views money as freedom. So she said, no, Ernest, this is an opportunity to do some shopping, change our wardrobes, buy married clothes. I'm like, what do you mean married clothes, So we need to look new, we're newly married, and we couldn't agree. We literally couldn't agree. So what we did, we got home and we split the money. I gave her 20K, I took 20K, told her, you go do what you want with your money, I'll do what I want with my money. And so she went to Toy Market and she got clothes.
That
Bales
must
of
have
clothes.
been, yeah.
She went to Mr. Price, she got clothes, came back with so many clothes. I thought she was starting a business, And then I went to Nakumat because I view money as security. I'm thinking about the future. So I went, stocked up the fridge, bought like 3 packets of rice, bought meat, stocked the fridge, and like, now I can relax. And I had some 5K left. When she came home, she was like, oh man, Ernest, I'm done with all my shopping, but I can see you've got some 5K left. Could you help me with it? And I'm like, That's when it blew up. And I kept in her, you don't know how to spend money, you're so irresponsible, you think money grows on trees. And you see, that's how I grew up. I grew up when being told, money is a valuable resource, use it scarcely. She grew up in a family where she was told, hey, money is for spending, use, life, you only live once, so spend, give, so we clashed on account of that. And we couldn't agree. We fought. Our neighbors could hear us shouting at each other. We didn't care. And we actually went to sleep just, not being able to talk to one another. We had to wake up the next morning, and being the head of the house, I had to, I felt guilty. I felt like, oh my goodness, is this how I'm leading my family? And I had to apologize for raising my voice and saying all those mean things to her. And just to understand where she came from really helped. Understanding brings tolerance, and that understanding just made me calm down and say, hey, you know what, by the way, I'm kind of stingy, I need to relax a bit concerning my money. And she realized, hey, I'm kind of a bit wild, I need to, save a bit more for a rainy day. So yes, we do have fights, that's one. And your fights can come because you've got dissimilar values,
Yeah.
not just on the macro level, but also on the micro level. You don't agree to the detail on what to do when it comes to important aspects of your marriage. Money could be one of them. Children could be another. Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's great. I think we've got to take a break now, but when we come back, of course, I've got to ask. You've got a lot to give us. When we come back, I'll ask you, Grace, how do you resolve conflict in your marriage, and how does it work for you? You've got to take a break. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back, ladies and gents. We've been talking to Grace and Ernest, who are experts in relationships. One's an author, another one's a family, what is it?
Marriage and
family therapist.
Therapist, yeah.
And therapist is psychologist too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yes. So I wasn't too far
Similar.
off. Yeah, similar. Before the break, we were talking about how you resolve conflict in your marriage. And Ernest, you gave us a little bit of an incident that went down between you and your wife.
Right.
And Grace, I've got to ask you, how do you resolve conflict? And I'm sure we'll even get into what you've learned so far.
Yes,
But how do you resolve conflict?
Now, I'm going to talk about it from a personality point of view.
Yeah.
That my husband and I are different in the way that we perceive and the way that we deal.
Okay.
So I am more of the avoider. I don't like conflict, and so I feel attacked a lot, even when he doesn't mean to. I will feel attacked, and so what I do, because I'm the one who feel this, what I do, I have to learn how to communicate with him, how I experience him, and I have also to communicate with myself how I'm experiencing and what I should do, so that I don't avoid conflict, and I don't shut down, and I don't pretend that everything is okay. So I don't want to stuff. So what we normally do, and what I normally do myself, because I'm the one who will avoid, and if I keep avoiding, he keeps coming, and now I feel attacked. So what I normally do is that I know myself first of all, so I know that I'm an avoider. So what I do is I sit down, I will walk away from the conversation, and I will say, I hear you, give me some time, and I will walk away, and I will not ruminate on it, but I will process it in my mind. What am I feeling? I'm feeling attacked, and I'm feeling some type of rejection. And I know myself enough to know if I feel attacked, it will come into rejection. So he doesn't like me, I'm not acceptable, and so now I have to defend myself. So what I do is I do that work within my head, and then I will come back to him, and I say, the other day we were talking about whatever, and we will talk about that. The other thing that I do, there are some things that can't wait. And so I know, so I'm very much aware of myself right now that the feeling of rejection and attack is going up. And I'm either going to snap at him or I'm going to shut down. So what I do, I employ the active listening skills. So I say, I pay attention to him now. So I will say, what I'm hearing you say is, and I engage him now. I show interest in him, and I stop focusing on my feelings.
Right.
You see?
Right.
So first of all, I have acknowledged my level of anger is going up, and I know I'm not going to say anything. I might actually walk out in protest.
Yeah.
But instead of doing that, because that will make him come after me,
Yeah.
and it will create something negative between us, so I have learned that I focus more on him. So what you're saying to me is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then he will say yes, and then I will let him talk some more, and then I will clarify. Maybe there is a question I have. I get deeper to understand where he's coming from, and now I have avoided dealing with or acting on my emotions.
Right, because that's a story you're telling
Yes.
yourself in your head.
Yes.
This is him attacking me.
Yes.
But instead you put that aside and you're like, wait, what is he actually saying? Let me try and help me understand.
And that question, what is he actually saying? It's actually from Dr. Gary Smalley's book, The DNA of Relationships. He says, just like Grace has said, we've got 2 default ways of dealing with conflict. We either run or we attack. All right? And he says neither of those 2 things work well. Right? They just delay the issue or they exacerbate the issue. And he says the best way to deal with conflict is to study conflict. And by studying conflict is to look at the situation intently and ask questions. So he says, you had a fight with your significant other and you're angry. You must ask yourself, why am I angry?
Yes.
Right.
And when you ask yourself that question, you must not just be satisfied with the overt answer that comes out of your frustration.
Yeah.
You must sit down and ask yourself, why am I angry? And you'll find that deep within yourself, there are certain fears that you have.
Yes.
So I'm angry because, and the answer often starts with I felt.
Yes.
I'm angry because I felt disrespected, I felt invalidated, I felt
embarrassed.
So, and then you must come to your partner, swallow your pride and tell them exactly how you felt.
Yeah.
Because at times you're afraid to say how you feel because you're saying, I will look petty.
Yes.
Or at times our partner will be like, how can you be angry about that? You know?
Yes.
So you have to say how you feel, and you need to be a good student of your spouse, so that you also study them and understand which buttons do they have, what fear buttons do they have. You say, oh, when we have this fight, she always feels, or she normally feels, he normally feels like this, so that you understand he normally feels invalidated when they bring this, he normally feels disconnected when they feel this. And he says, if you understand your partner's fear buttons, you'll understand their needs.
Yes.
Because a person who feels disrespected wants respect.
Yes.
A person who feels invalidated wants to be honored, wants to be recognized. And then what you do is that you work your conversation in such a way that you still get the point across without pressing those fear buttons.
Exactly.
All right. However, as the person with the fear buttons, you can't keep saying my partner must know my fear buttons coming through. Fear buttons a lot. You just watch out. You too must take responsibility because they are your buttons.
Yeah.
All right. So if I'm constantly offended by 4 people in the same way, then I am the common denominator in those 4 ways.
Yeah.
Then perhaps maybe I'm too sensitive. Perhaps. So there are also things that I need to work on, and perhaps from your
Right.
upbringing, from your all that. So you must be a good student of your spouse, study conflict, and then address it almost surgically
Yeah.
until you get to the bottom of it.
And I guess at this point, if you're in a relationship and a marriage, then it's okay to be vulnerable, right? Because it's a safe space. It's not the same as if it was just someone
must
you
be
met.
vulnerable.
And what Ernest is saying, I also have to be a safe space for my spouse.
Right.
So when you talk about respect, if I feel disrespected, then that means that I, who is triggering those buttons of disrespect, I need to be able to change the way that I speak to you. I don't need to character assassinate you, like now what you say to your wife, you are so irresponsible, because now I brand you.
Right.
And at that moment, your wife is going to be
guard is
Yes.
up,
you know,
you're done.
I have,
it's over.
It's
you know,
true.
Yeah.
because
You really must separate people from their
From their
actions.
Right.
Because there's a difference between saying, Sharon, you're a late comer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And saying, Sharon, you came late.
Yeah.
Wait, you are more likely to respond to the latter with grace.
Yeah.
Right.
If I
Yeah.
say you're a late comer, I've labeled you.
It's done. I might just
You
well, I
can't
might as well
change.
just be
Yeah,
like, what
you
does it
can't.
matter?
Yeah,
You already
so
think that.
that exacerbates conflict.
And that's
Yeah.
the same with parenting too, right?
Yes.
It's the same as like you're a bad child.
Right.
It's like what you did was
Exactly.
not
wrong.
good. Yeah, was
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah. And,
right.
and we
so,
need to stop telling children that good boy because you ate your food, or no, let's just say job well done.
Yeah.
Ooh, we need to have you both back
Yeah,
for
because if
the,
you
ch-
tell
the
me
parenting parenting
Job
conversation.
well done. I always think about that because I struggled with self-esteem issues because of that. Because either if you don't, you're lazy, you're inconsistent, you're all these
Right.
things
It's
that we say.
labeling,
But,
huh?
but we need to label behavior, not people.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you both for sharing such intimate parts of your relationship.
Very good.
And now I've got to ask: is it possible to avoid conflict altogether?
It's not even healthy.
Okay. Okay.
Conflict is inevitable.
Okay.
As long as the two human beings
Yes.
in any location, there will be
Yeah.
conflict.
Will be, yeah.
It's not conflict that destroys relationships. It's unresolved conflict.
Yes.
So conflict will happen, but the moment it takes a backlog, the moment it becomes backlog and it's unresolved, it's not sorted out, that's what destroys relationships, all right? So as long as conflict is not resolved, it will always be a problem, but conflict in and of itself is not a bad thing.
Conflict provides growth.
Yes.
Because if I am pushed, it's almost like if I'm squeezed, then I grow, because then I will it's an opportunity for me to understand myself better, and it's an opportunity for my partner also to see another side of me. So we continue to grow, and then our relationship grows because our relationship learns how to deal with the conflict.
Right.
But if we avoid, and stonewalling is one of the words that they
Stonewalling.
use, is the avoidance.
Okay.
So, for instance, a guy who doesn't want conflict, madam comes in and says, hey, hon, I need to tell you something. He keeps the TV on and he is not, eye contact is not there, there is no feedback, and he just waits for her to finish. And then when she finishes, he said, was I talking to myself? And he's, phew, she's done. But you see, that is what we call stonewalling. Or they pick up the paper and they didn't give any feedback at all, and they didn't do the active listening that we need to, and also the attending. You know, we talk about showing interest, showing, inviting.
Yes.
When he says yes, so I know he's listening, he's engaged with me. So and the skills on engaging another person in a conversation, those skills need to be taught to our couples, because most of us, we never saw our parents really engaging, except when they were angry.
Oh, that's a good one. So what are some healthy tools to employ when you're in a conflict, for couples out there listening?
So one of them I would say, avoid absolutes. Avoid absolutes. You never.
Yeah.
You always. What absolutes do is that they give no room for the person to change or to think that they've done anything right. All right? Yeah. So avoid absolutes. I would also say you must be able to balance negative comments with positive comments. Yes. People go through life and they hear so many horrible things. And to just say something good that your partner has done really, really helps deal with the conflict.
Is this during the conflict or even outside of the conflict?
Even outside.
Okay.
In fact, if you do it outside, fantastic, you know. But even during the conflict, and I think you'll be able to do it in the conflict when you've practiced it outside.
So for instance, with that instance with your wife,
all right,
how would you have been able to give a compliment when you're just like, listen, you've spent all that money, okay?
All right.
So how do you start by giving a compliment?
So I accused of being irresponsible.
Yeah.
She accused me of being stingy.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
However, if I've been practicing beforehand, telling her the good compliments about her, I'll see some good in that. I'll be able to see, hey, you know what? I like that you don't hold on to money. Yeah. You know, I like that you're expressive.
Yeah.
However, we need to regulate this.
Yeah.
Now you see, my friend calls it the sandwich method. You know, compliment, criticism, then compliment. You know, that's a good sandwich to have.
Oh, so that's the thing.
Compliment, then the criticism or the.
Okay. So for instance, you'd be like, you know, I like that you're very free spirited when it comes to money, and you're very relaxed.
You're adventurous.
However, we need to regulate that.
Yes.
But you know what? Maybe you could help me also learn how to enjoy
things. Perfect.
Exactly.
And she would say, you know, Ernest, you know, I like that you save money. I like that you think about a rainy day. And my goodness, where would we be if we don't?
Yeah.
Yes.
But I feel like you can't hoard money.
Yeah.
You can't. You're loving it. You're holding.
Yeah.
You know, but I would also love to learn how to just manage my own. You know,
money.
Good sandwich. Have it.
We've never. Imagine if that's what government leaders would figure it out.
And think about it. If Ernest could have also seen his wife actually stocked up for their clothes, just like he stocked up.
And he's gonna love how she looks and all those. Like, you're gonna be like,
hopefully she bought some clothes for you.
Look
too.
at that.
Yeah. And the other thing is public praise but private criticism.
Yes.
Say the good things about your partner in the hearing of others. Say the negative things about them to them.
Yes.
To them. It really helps. And I think also asking for feedback. I remember I got to a point to ask my wife, you know, you keep saying I constantly interrupt you when you're speaking, you know. I don't give you a chance to speak. How am I doing? And she told me, well, you still interrupt, but you're way better than you were last.
Oh, you're asking for progress report.
Exactly.
Yes.
When you ask for feedback, you grow.
How am I doing?
Because you do something
and
about
it shows that you care.
Yes, definitely.
That you were listening.
Definitely. And I tell
Chris?
couples to do this also. One of the skills that, now we talked about constant complimenting, but also we talk about when we complain about a behavior, catch it when it's happening. And to be able to say, Ernest, that's exactly what I was telling you. What you just did right now, that's what I normally say you do when you interrupt me. And so that they can see it within a conversation. You're not saying it outside. You can also identify that. Now, you who is being given feedback, you have to be willing to accept the feedback. The way that it is given is very important, because when we ask, we say things. I like the word you used earlier, observe. So I have observed that when this happens, this is the way you react. And that way is better than, why do you always do that? Because you put me on defense
Always.
now.
Yes, always.
Yeah.
You always
Absolute,
do that.
yeah.
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 So nobody ever always does.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it will be like on the 14th of September 19. They'll give dates.
No
Yeah.
record.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know if we have more time, which is breaking my heart because I could continue for hours and hours, and maybe we'll have, I think we should have a part 2. This feels unresolved.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And we don't want anything unresolved.
No, we don't.
Like there's lots more that we could have gotten into.
Yes.
But thank you so much. Thank you so
Thanks
much
for having us.
So Ernest, where can people get this book?
So you can get it on my website, penstrokes.co.ke, and you can click on the book. The image is right there, penstrokes.co.ke. Basics, get it. And if you're within the CBD of Nairobi, delivery is free. And if you're outside Nairobi, delivery can be arranged.
All right.
Yeah.
And I think I heard you mention that there's a book that might
Yeah,
be coming out
yeah,
that you're
I'm
working
working on
on.
it. I'm working
I
on
can't
it.
wait.
Yes.
I cannot wait.
Yes.
Thank you both so much.
You're
I really
welcome.
do feel like I've just had a free therapy session. I feel like we've all had a free therapy session, and I'm sure there's lots of people who've learned.
Right.
Yeah, because there's a lot of breakups and divorces that are taking place right now. So anything that we can learn that will help us pick the right partners and be able to resolve conflicts
Right.
is welcome. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this show as much as I did. Let me tell you, I took notes. I don't remember the last time I was taking notes like I was in a classroom. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day too, and the rest of your week. Good luck if you've got an argument that you've been trying to figure out how to resolve. If there was something that happened this weekend, hopefully now you know how to approach it and how to approach any other conflict that you've got in your life. Because these tips are good, not just for relationships, for even friendships, your boss,
yes.
things like that too,
Yes.
right? Alrighty, so thank you for watching. We'll be back here tomorrow at 8 a.m. sharp. And thank you to Parkin by Radisson. Bye, everybody.